Hydroelectric Plant, a case study. Today, the Tucuruí Hydroelectric Plant generates 4,240 megawatts of electric energy, providing 87% of electrical energy in Pará State, 97% in Maranhão State, 67% in Tocantins State, integrating the southeast and southwest of Brazil, benefiting about 4 million people. This comprises 8.7% of the country's total electrical energy production.
The mega project was ready to operate in 1992, with 12 turbines functioning. Construction continued, and now 22 turbines provide 11 electrical energy transmission channels. But this is not all. Eletronorte still should be working to conclude the second stage of the floodgates, but the work has been interrupted since 2005 for a lack of funding by the federal government. 30 million reais, about $15 million, are necessary to finish the job. While many cities in Amazonia are receiving energy, a big part of the city of Tucuruí, home of the plant, does not yet have electricity. The rural zone is still using oil lamps. Even the schools are in the same situation. In the city, people ask why they have to pay so much if the electricity is produced practically in their backyard. Even the mayor recognizes the exploitation of the local consumer's pocket.
A energia aqui em Tucuruí é muito cara.
I can assure you, energy in Tucuruí is very expensive. Once I made a comparison between the kilowatt-hour price that Eletronorte sells to Regiselpa and the price this local company resells to consumers. And I can tell you, for the consumers, it is 5 times more expensive.
5 vezes mais do que o preço que era vendido pela Eletronorte.
When the construction of the dam on the Tocantins River began, hundreds of families who had little land, where they lived poor but with dignity, were removed from their lots. Some of them received full compensation as negotiated with Eletronorte, but some others didn't receive anything at all.
I lost 10 hectares of coffee, pepper, and some other crops, and I also lost my house and an artesian well. Until today, I have received nothing, even to buy penny candy. They never paid.
They promised that they were going to build a house for us, but they didn't. I put together a little 5-meter hut to shelter and protect my family. They took my property and they kept it.
Porque já estava querendo a área, que não morava de qualquer maneira, eles queriam a área.
The dam ended human life here. It finished off the people who used to live in this rural area. Everything died, the crops, our chickens and other animals.
E acabou com tudo, plantio, criação.
In 2005, the expropriated people formed a movement of those affected by the building of the dam and wanted to fight for their rights. There were months of struggle, camping in the place where the second phase of the floodgates is projected, recalling the past promises, and demanding compensation for all they had lost.
perdi tudo que foi meu, posso dizer.
I can say that I lost everything, my husband, my animals, my Brazil nut trees, so much forest of cedar and mahogany. My little house was always full of people that used to work together with me, but today I don't even have a house to live in. I have to pay rent. Everyone knows I live struggling to survive. I ask for God's help. I don't have father, mother, brothers, or sisters. We were 8 in my family. All of them died. One of these days they killed a grandson I had. I lost everything in my life. I don't like to talk about these things. I don't.
Eu perdi tudo, minha filha, da minha alma, não gosto de contar.
Dozens of people living in peace 20 years ago today have to pay rent to live, and they have no idea about their future.
After 20 years of the dam's construction, we realize that we don't get any kind of compensation.
Não conseguimos ter nenhum tipo de retorno que compensasse a construção da barragem.
In 1991, movement of those affected by the dams was created to strengthen the people's struggle. They established the date of their first assembly, March 14th, as a National Day Against Dams. In Tucuruí, some members of this movement have joined the expropriated people who are demanding compensation for damages suffered.
Just to give you an idea, today in Brazil there are more than 2,000 dams built. Because of this, more than 1 million persons were already expelled from their lands, and 3,400,000 hectares of fertile and productive lands were flooded. Major problems as yet unsolved have been generated. 70% of the families affected by the construction of dams in Brazil never received their just compensation.
70 não receberam a indenização justa.
The damming of the Tocantins River didn't affect only farmers and riverside inhabitants. The Indians also lost almost everything. Their lands are destroyed and their cultures have been badly affected.
They lost all their crops. They had fields and houses. The flood happened very fast.
Foi assim uma inundação muito rápida que teve aqui.
Aí a floresta era grandão.
The story told by the Açuranese is sad. According to them, right after the situation they called deluge, dead people began to appear one after another. Indians were becoming sick and died because of malaria and diarrhea. There was no time to look for help in the forest or in the traditional Indian medicine. So the dead bodies were abandoned or burned inside the houses. It was impossible to bury them because there were so many.
Many Indians died here, and as we don't have how to bury them, we covered the dead bodies with tree branches, burned, and we left them like that. How could we bury? There were so many.
Today, the Açuranese Indians are reduced to little more than 400, living in the Trocará Reserve, located in the Trans-Cametá Road. Some professionals of the federal government also work there in a project designed to rescue the lost Indian culture.
The dam also affected another 6 counties: Tucuruí, Repartimento, Breu Branco, Nova Ipixuna, Goianésia, Jacundá, and Itupiranga. These cities were also economically affected because they lost the income that came from fishing, agriculture, and mining.
A lot of people were living by gathering and selling Brazil nuts, but now many of the nut trees are underwater in the dam's reserve. Brazil nuts are gone. Açaí, a palm fruit, is gone. Many people who used to commercialize the açaí and other forest products now have nothing. Everything is gone.
The damming of the Tocantins River also depleted existing life in it. The fishermen living in this region talk like this.
We have to look somewhere else. Here everything is finished. There is nothing.
Eu vou contar para você. Com mais 5 anos pode nós não vir para cá. Porque não tem nada.
Fishermen exist, but there is no fish.
The flooding provoked by the dam brought many sicknesses, especially to the riverside people. In the rural zone, they are still spraying toxic chemicals to kill the insects that transmit the sickness.
Here we have some cases of malaria. People go to the city when they can get a free ride. If not, it's only wait for God's will. Nothing to be done. While this happens here, there in the city the health assistance that should be better is precarious, as seen by the long lines of people in front of the hospitals from before dawn.
Sometimes there is no doctor, or there are too many people and some have to come back home without being attended.
Para mim, é horrível.
And right next to this suffering majority, there is a well-equipped hospital for the employees of Elektronorci in the permanent villa, a small independent city built in 1974 by the company. This little villa has its own structure, so that who dwells there has no need to seek anything outside. Today, Tucuruí has 81,700 inhabitants. The population before the dam was much smaller, but increased disproportionately with the hydroelectric construction. Although the town receives a monthly compensation for hosting the plant, its own physical structure is still quite precarious.
It is difficult because the water is powerful and comes into my house. When it rains a lot, it seems like a river, and you have to bail out the water. We've already put a lot of dirt around to bring up the level, but the water comes and carries it all away.
The commercial center of Tucuruí has only 2 streets. Public safety is still something to think about, since only recently the police zone was inaugurated and belongs to another county. The rural schools are precarious at best. Children travel hours in a small boat to get to the area's only school, where 5 levels are being taught in the same classroom with only 1 teacher, making education a kind of miracle. A teacher describes it like this.
I put the alphabetization group on one side of the classroom, first grade on the other side, and the following levels in order wherever they fit, sitting on a few chairs we have or on my table. I divide the board into 4 parts and put the respective content for each group.
Electric energy is another thing we lack.
We see the electrical energy being produced. We need it, but we don't have it.
É ruim pra gente, né? Porque é nossa energia, a barragem é nossa e nós não temos.
This whole situation in Tucuruí and surrounding region is a valuable subsidy for the Xingu region that is wondering about the possible benefits propagated when referring to Belo Monte Dam. The worries with regard to Belo Monte Dam concern the effects on the Xingu River if this hydroelectric complex is constructed. For there will be a series of dams, not just one, blocking the course of the river. Some politicians and businessmen defend this work, saying that it is good for the region. But for years the issue divides opinions, and already was being discussed by union leader Ademir Alceu Federico Dema, who was killed in August 2001 in Altamira.
This project will be totally private, which is going to be a big problem for all of us. First, because the Xingu River is a patrimony of all humanity. It is a huge river that runs through many forests, Indian territories, and riverside villages. With the project privatized, Eletronorte will try to run ahead of and around judicial and environmental issues so as to quickly sell the project.
Belo Monte has spurred the curiosity of researchers in several parts of the country who work independently to publish studies on the impact of the project on the environment. IBAMA, the Government Environmental Protection Agency, is doing similar studies.